Welcome to the Construction Disruption Podcast, where we uncover the future of design, building, and remodeling.
I'm Todd Miller of Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building materials. Today, my co-host is Ethan Young. Ethan, you haven't been on here in a while. We've missed you.
Yeah, I'm doing good. I've kind of avoided it, I guess. No, I'm just kidding.
Avoided it.
We always have a good time talking to a lot of interesting people and, hearing their stories and their perspectives. So glad to be back.
Glad you're here. Well, yeah, it's kind of like a life sentence being on the show. So we're glad you're here. So I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Why did the pony ask for a glass of water?
Because his throat was a little hoarse.
Yeah, because he was a little hoarse.
Okay.
Good one. I was going to be disappointed if you didn't get that, so I'm glad you got that. So as a reminder to our audience, once again on this episode, we are doing our challenge words, and that means that each one of us on the show today has been given a special word or phrase by one of the others that we are challenged to work into the conversation somehow as seamlessly as possible. And at the end of the show, we will reveal what our words were and whether we were successful or not. And you, the audience, all along can be guessing what our challenge words might be. So Ethan, you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So how do you prepare an industry as wide and varied as construction for the future? That's a great question. And our guest today is someone with years of leadership experience who is preparing our industry for the future. And he sees that as his burning passion. Today's guest is Mr. Clyde King of Buchanan, West Virginia. Clyde, I want to say, served in the U.S. Marine Corps for 8 years. Thanks so much for your service, Clyde. And then he entered the AEC trades focused on commercial construction, where he has built a career over the last 30 years. Someone who loves a challenge, Clyde has spent his recent years focused on mentoring and training younger folks in our industry, helping to continue the legacy of those in construction, those great folks in construction who have built and grown our nation. Clyde, welcome to Construction Disruption. Pleasure to have you today as our guest.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, again, I want to thank you for your service to our country. That means a great deal to us. And one thing I noted, I thought was really interesting, was that you were a drummer in the U.S. Marine Corps Field Drum and Bugle Corps. Before we start talking about carpentry and construction, tell us a little bit what that was like to be in the Field Drum and Bugle Corps.
It was an honor. We got music. I've been playing drums, well, probably since I was in first grade, so like 7, and I just turned 60.
Wow.
So, but no, I mean, I was always loved marching field shows. In junior high, I believe, we went to see 8th and I for a Friday evening parade. And I was like, you know what? If I can do it, that's what I want to do. So my junior year, I took an audition and was accepted on a music guarantee. And then after graduation, I went to Paris Island, then went to the Naval School of Music at Norfolk, Virginia. It's Little Creek's the base, the Little Creek Amphibious base is where the school is. And then from there, back then, they kind of had different things with height. And me being on the short side, I didn't go to 8th and I went to 29 Palms to the Field Drum Corps and I was out there from 1984 through 1990.
That had to have been pretty interesting and cool, because everyone is just marveled whenever they see any of the USMC music groups, and just amazing. So thank you. That's fantastic. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm drawing off of memory wrong here, West Virginia kind of has a bit of a storied history with drum and bugle corps groups, don't they? Aren't there a number of real solid ones that have come out of West Virginia over the years?
Back in the 70s, I believe, Pennsylvania and like the Garfield Cadets were out of Garfield, New Jersey. Pennsylvania had the Crossmen and a couple other smaller corps. But like a lot of your Class A corps, your open Class DCI corps, were mainly Midwest, West Coast, and then East Coast.
Yeah, cool. Neat stuff. I always enjoy watching that. I was never anywhere close to that level of a musician, but amazing. So throughout your career, you have worked in a lot of areas, including carpentry, estimating, quality control, being a foreman. Can you give us kind of an overview of your career after you left the Marine Corps?
Well, after I'd moved back home to PA and went to work for a subcontractor that was doing metal studs and drywall. They happened to be subbing to a job for my dad's company. Dad left the architectural firm that he was with and became part owner of a general contractor. And then throughout those 14 years I was with the non-union side, everybody kept saying, it's like, why don't you just go into the GC side and take over for your dad when he retires? Well, there's a story there of why I didn't, because me and one of the other owners, we kind of grew up together, and we'd have been butting heads. So
Gotcha.
I was like, no.
Sometimes we know when a recipe is not made for something good.
So I just but I went to work actually, it started out as a laborer with them. But from my background with design and everything from Dad, and then plus working in the summers when I was home at the Boy Scout camp, and we'd be doing carpentry working there on the camp for the Boy Scouts. The foreman knew my background. I spent a week as a laborer, then I was in tools. And then within 3 years, I was running an $800,000 or $900,000 interior project.
And that was the start of what led to a whole lot more. And
oh yeah, I was with that company for 14 years, and finally had enough of a project manager, and he wasn't supporting the field superintendents at all. And I had enough. I went to the owner. It's like, either he goes or I go. He was like, well, I was like, he doesn't need to be in a position he's in. He doesn't know what he's doing. And I went to the foreman. I said, Friday's my last day. And he goes like, where are you going? I says, I don't know yet, but by Friday I'll have another job. And I did. I went to work as a superintendent for another interior company, which turned into me being paid by them and the general contractor on one project, because the GC's superintendent had a heart attack. So I had just finished up a $1 million project under them on another site. And they were like, well, you know everything that's going on because you handled all the subs on that project. So we'll just pay you 28 hours a week from us, as a ticket. And then the other company can cover your remaining hours. So that project, I was kind of bouncing between the GC side and the sub side. And then when we finished it up is when I had moved down here to West Virginia and ended up joining the union in 2007, and have been literally doing anything and everything that carpenters do since then.
So all types of projects then you're involved with today. I mean, commercial, residential, or
well, we don't really do much residential.
Yeah.
We do have a couple contractors that do some residential work, but the scale's lower and the benefit package is different. So I try to stay on the commercial and industrial side.
Well, during your time in all of that, one of the things you've really developed a passion for, and I know you and I have spoke before, has been leadership and also for training and encouraging others in our industry. Kind of curious, where does that drive come from for you? I mean, is that something you've had your whole life? You like to bring others along, or did it sort of come out of your Marine Corps experience, or maybe just because you saw a real need for it out there? I'm kind of curious what brought that all to be.
Both. The leadership I learned as a Marine when I became an NCO, I still apply to this day on different things, trying to get everybody to work together. Because even though I was in the music field, we still have to go out and train with our rifles. because during combat, our basic secondary MOS is the commanding general's perimeter guard, and that for the base.
Oh, interesting.
And when Saddam invaded Kuwait, we were up in Washington State and had our air transportation yanked out from under us because they were shipping everybody over. When we got back down to 29 Palms, we ended up not having to go over, but I spent my last few months as an MP on the base. And we had some kids that had never, been in that situation, so we were trying to train and so throughout, their time. I had a bunch of friends that ended up going over eventually, and I've lost some friends over there the first time and this last time. But, it's one of those things. You're always going to have evil in the world in one way or another. We all just kind of have to, deal with it in our own way. Getting close to retirement, I started seeing different friends post on LinkedIn, trying to pass knowledge on. And that's really what started it. It's like, I'm 60 now. I just turned 60 in November. I can go at 62 and pull my pension because I'll have 20 years on the union side then. But, it's like this knowledge has to get out there. So that's what started my random thoughts. And then my other one, my construction talks unfiltered, which that one actually started as to get some information out there about some companies that are, in my eyes, doing things wrong. Like my first couple posts wasn't naming any companies, and I won't. But when you've got a superintendent that's playing favoritism and everything with guys, that's absolutely wrong. When you've got guys that are outperforming these guys, and then they're getting laid off, and you're keeping the guys that aren't performing because they're one of your favorites. That's where the talk's unfiltered. That was like, I'm just going to speak my mind.
No, well, tell us a little bit more about your videos and things you have out there. I know you've been spending a lot of time on that. They're on YouTube, is that correct?
I'm trying to get some up on YouTube, but mainly I've just been keeping everything on the LinkedIn platform. The Construction Talks Unfiltered, they're like my video podcast, but they're normally broke down because LinkedIn will only let you upload 10 minutes. So a 30-minute conversation gets broke down to 3 or 4 sessions. Even though I continue it, but I do all my own editing and everything. I use software called Wondershare Filmora that I was using for the race team. And I was like, well, I can use the same thing here, bring the interview off of StreamYard into it, and then start breaking down and adding music or doing different things. And that's where that came from.
Well, we encourage folks to check them out for sure. Well, going back to your career, I mean, you've been in construction 30 or so years. What are some of the significant changes you've seen in the industry over that time?
One significant change that it's still being slow to be adopted is the switch to digital drawings and digital paperwork. I mean, I've got probably 15 or 20 of the old big green construction logbooks full of notes in that from over the years on projects where I ran. So that switch over to digital, bringing more of quality control into things to, help try to alleviate rework. And then just like on the carpentry side, back when I first started, when we were laying out chalking lines, putting down bottom track and that, we'd be up at the deck with our thumb on a plumb bob dangling down to hit that line to mark for the top track. Well, now we've got rotating lasers and spot lasers and everything else that, weren't around back in the early 90s.
Well, I mean, talking about that and technology and things, how do you find that you keep yourself up with technology? I mean, you kind of seem to have a natural bent that way toward tech, but how do you keep up with everything?
One, I find it fascinating to a point. And then 2, I really dove into research and that for the tech through my dirt track racing. The evolution of dirt late models from the mid 90s to now and all the adjustments and everything that you can do to them, you have to stay on top of the mechanics and the physics of what flows where, what weight transfers. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting running around the back of the pack. So that's where the drive to keep learning things kind of started. But then it's like, I can better my career. I can hopefully get myself into a position because, I might pull my pension at 62, but I'll never walk away from construction until probably they put me in the ground. I'll be involved in one way or another, either going to start my own consulting business, or if somebody has me in as a superintendent, project manager, where I'm completely out of my tools, then I could mentor their younger ones. That's, all well and good.
Well, yeah, it becomes part of your DNA. I mean, it's who you are at this point, and that's cool. So dirt track racing, I don't know a ton about that, but is that what they do at Eldora Speedway here in Ohio?
Yes.
Okay.
That's one track. I've been there. We haven't had the car there.
Okay.
But we did race at Bristol back in 2001 when they first put dirt on the high banks for the very first time. They did it in 2001 and 2002. We didn't go back down because we hurt a motor the year before while we were there. So we ended up not actually getting to run the heat races and feature because we hurt the motor at practice. But that's, that love, that passion of going fast. And it's still there.
Cool stuff. Good deal. So you've been a member of the union, the United Brotherhood of Carpenters. I'm just kind of curious for our younger audience members out there, what do you see as the key benefits or even challenges to union membership for our industry?
One of the key benefits is the training, bar none. If you go, I didn't go through the apprenticeship because I had already had so many years experience, but for the younger ones coming in, going through the apprenticeship, you get to learn each aspect about the carpentry trade just for the carpenters. Because we do floor coverings, we do ceramic tile, metal studs, drywall, exterior framing, scaffold building. What we do covers a wide gamut. And if you go through certain cities and that, because the apprenticeship and that is so big, they kind of try to make them specialize into like one area, either concrete or metal studs and drywall and that. But down here, since we only have 2 locals in the state now, since we kind of combined everything with the Eastern Atlantic States Council, we get the guys trained in everything that we do. So they can go out, and on the job and feel confident that, okay, I can perform. But then, like I said, the advantage is the training and the safety. There's been way, way too many. Unfortunately, in my first 14 to 16 years, I was on projects where 3 people were killed. One was a ditch collapse, which they should have never been digging that day because I literally walked out of my boots, and I wore lace-up boots trying to get into the building. My boot got stuck down in the mud, and I literally came up out of my laced-up boots. Another one, they overloaded a scaffold with the masons, and the scaffold collapse killed 2. And another one, they were the backup alarm wasn't working on a dozer, and the operator didn't see the guy. So, safety-wise is another big one. And then, of course, the benefits. A lot of your non-union companies are paying great wages, real comparable to what we make on the hour, but then they're asking the guys to take money out of that to help them cover the cost of their health insurance or their 401k, even though the employer's matching a little bit. With us, with the benefit package, my health care, my pension, and everything is completely part. It doesn't come out of my hourly check. That's a separate part of the package.
Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense. No, thank you for that. It's good stuff. So you were part of helping to write a book that was called Elevating Construction Foreman. Tell us a little bit about that and why that's important to you.
again, it goes back to being able to pass the knowledge on to help the leaders today learn to be able to, one, handle the guys, two, be able to keep track of things. That was, I forget how many was in that collaboration, but it was through Jason Schroeder with Elevating the Trades, or Elevate Construction. It is the main thing he does. He's got books on elevating construction superintendents, lean, tact, and everything else. That being able to bring the foreman up to speed and how they talk to people and talk to their crews. In today's day and age, when I came in, we were still screaming and yelling at each other to go get things done. Well, that doesn't work all the time. Some guys you still have to do that with, I will say, though. But most of the time, if you talk to some of these younger kids like that now, they're just going to blow you off and say, I don't care. And that's the other reason. It's like, we're out here building a legacy for future generations. What we do now affects years from now as far as building.
Absolutely. No, and you brought up the safety aspect and even the building safety aspect, making sure the construction is done well. So it is long-term safe as well. So one of the things that caught my eye at the top of your LinkedIn profile, and I know Clyde would be happy to connect with anyone on there, but on top of your profile, it says, believe in yourself and your passions. Where does that come from? And what do you hope people take from that?
Just to get people to realize that they have the power within themselves. Believe in your abilities, believe in your passions, show your leadership skills. Let the world know that, hey, this is what I've done, or not being braggy about it, but this is what I've done. This is what I can bring to the table.
What are some of the challenges that you're seeing emerging in construction right now, and that you see maybe, things we need to be really trying to address here in coming years?
One of the biggest challenges, and I've been taking a bunch of webinars and that about, is mental health. Mental health in the construction industry is a major problem. One forefront out of Washington does different webinars and that I've sat in on and taken. Well, the one was dealing about the social studies end of that they've done as far as data and everything else on how mental health affects communities. Well, that translates big time right into mental health and construction. And it's, for years, it was always in the shadows. I mean, it's been around. Mental health problems in the construction industry have been around since the 70s. I mean, you get hurt on a job, you're going to go, doctor's going to prescribe you pain pills. You're going to go back to work. You're going to keep popping pills because it helps you get through that day. Well, then you're starting to get anxiety because you're hurting. It gets to be a great big downward spiral and kind of gets, it's gotten out of hand. And that's one reason why, for those of out there that have seen some of my random thoughts, you'll see that I have an alter ego, my Blues Brothers hat, and my dark glasses, and I go under the synonym of Clyde Blues, and we're talking about mental health, things like alcohol, opioids, and things of that nature, to just keep everybody aware of it and what it does affect. I've seen way too many people go down a very bad path with, a mental health problem. We had one worker that I had worked with, but he thought his wife was cheating on him. She wasn't. Well, he called her one day and to come home. He needed her at the house right now. she pulled in the driveway and walked up to the barn, and he blew his head off right in front of her. I mean, it's mental health is a big time problem in the industry.
No, it is. I'm glad you brought that up. We did have a previous guest a number of episodes ago, a gentleman by the name of Chad Dunlap. And Chad works for a large commercial roofing firm, but mental health in our industry is a passion of his. And he goes around and speaks with students and so forth, and really trying to raise awareness and also to help with suicide prevention being another passion of his. But no, I'm glad you're addressing that as well, because it does seem to affect our industry disproportionately, no doubt about it.
While we're on the topic of challenges, one thing I wanted to ask you, Clyde, especially you mentioned a couple of times through the interview about, talking to younger generations. And that's something that we've heard from a lot of different people we've interviewed, and, including a guy that helps run a trade school, is just how can we get this younger generation more involved? How can we kind of, keep this tradition going and not just, a lot of people get, kids these days don't want to do manual labor. They don't want to, it's like chopping firewood or whatever. They don't, they didn't grow up doing any of that, so they don't want to do construction. But what's your opinion on all that? What do you think we could do to improve it?
One of the main things is when they took the shop classes and that out of the schools, and when the schools and the public school system kept promoting college, that deterred a lot of young talent away from the trades. And now they're finding out that, hey, we can make a lot of money in the trades. So we're starting to see more and more come back. But, it's still a problem. But one place to start, there's an instructor at a school in New Jersey that I follow on LinkedIn, that he works with middle school kids, teaching them how to, for doing plumbing and carpentry and everything else. And, that's a great program. I wish that most school districts would start trying to bring things like that back.
Absolutely. It seems like, trying to get kids interested when they're younger and just exposed to things so that they know the opportunities are out there seems to be a real positive thing.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about, where you are today. And I know that, you've got this burning passion for the industry. Looking out a little bit, you said, you may go into consulting or who knows, but what is the impact you would like to say, have folks later say you left on the industry?
Just the fact that, I helped pass knowledge on and help younger ones realize that passion in themselves to help continue that legacy, which is another thing that I've tried to do with a couple of our apprentices that I've had working with me. The last couple of years, being with the union, you get so many different guys for a job and then they might move on. Well, when I have an apprentice with me, being in the trades for so many years, I've got doubles, triples, and quadruples of so many of the hand tools that we're supposed to carry. Power tools and that are technically up to the contractor, but our hand tools, your hammer, your saw, square, framing square, things of that nature, we're supposed to have all the time. So when a young apprentice, especially a first year, comes along and works with me, before he leaves me, I give him one of my tools that I've got doubles or triples of. I've passed on a handsaw to him to keep in his toolbox from then on. Framing square. One youngster I had, we were doing some door hardware and trying to replace some doors. I had to get my impact screwdriver out that has a great big number 3 tip. Then you smack with a hammer to get that screw to loosen up. And showed him how to use that. Well, when he left me, that went in his toolbox for him to carry with him for future.
That's cool. Yeah, they'll certainly remember you for that as well. So that's good stuff. Well, Clyde, this has been a great discussion. We're thankful for your time today. We're close to wrapping up kind of what we call the business end of things. Is there anything we haven't covered yet today that you wanted to be sure to share with our audience?
just the fact that for companies out there, look to your older workers, lean on them for advice at times if they need. Take them into the office if you need to. Let them come in and learn a little bit about that end if they haven't had that experience. But they can also pass their knowledge down, like for superintendents. If you got a young superintendent, sticking with one that's been around for a while. Let him learn from them because every building, it doesn't matter if it's retail, a hospital, the codes might change. You might have different fire rating things that you have to deal with. But still, the basic principle of any building has a step-by-step process from the underground clear through to hanging the curtains. And, lean on the older generation to show you all some shortcuts. Like one of the things I pride myself on is my ability to think on my feet sometimes on a project. That one theater that I ran, they started me 3 months behind because of design changes. And then they kept pushing the timeline, pushing the time frame. Well, I kind of looked at the superintendent and it's like, stay in your trailer. If it's something important, come get me. Let me bounce the trades around, because the only way we're going to get this done is if everybody works together, and it's going to mean bouncing around because you're missing material for something. Well, let them get in here and get their work done. And, that ability has served me well. And it's also shot me in the foot a couple times, but, things happen. You learn and grow. Above all, keep learning.
Love it. Good advice. Great stuff. So, one of the things that we always do here at the end of the show is what we call rapid fire questions. So these are 7 questions we will ask you. You have no idea what we're going to ask. Some are serious, some are silly. All you have to do is give a response. So you want to give a try for rapid fire?
Yeah, why not?
Awesome. Ethan, you want to ask question number 1?
Yeah, I can get us started. This is always a fun one. What's a product or service that you bought recently that was a game changer for you?
I'd say product was one of my stair tread tools for measuring stair treads. I used to do it the old-fashioned way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that little tool saves a lot of time.
Nice.
Good stuff. Good answer. Question number 2. What is your favorite meal?
Manicotti.
Manicotti. See, now I think that, and I think manicotti with a tangerine for dessert, and I'm good to go. So, good one.
Question number 3. I guess we already kind of talked about this, but what did the 8-year-old Clyde dream of being when he grew up?
The 8-year-old me definitely wanted to be a drummer.
Nice.
Or an architect with Dad.
So, was this going to be a drummer in a rock band, or what was this going to be?
More than likely, probably rock band.
Yeah.
I've got a diverse music back style. I mean, I listen to club music, I listen to some country, but I do like my heavy metal, heavier rock.
Good stuff. Okay, next question. If you had to eat a crayon, what color of crayon would you choose to eat, Clyde?
Probably a red one to go with my blood stripes on my uniform.
Okay, gotcha. Good one.
I honestly don't know where the crayon thing started with the Marines.
Oh, yeah.
That's an inside joke with a lot of Marines about, we're crayon eating lunatics.
Oh, my. I did not even know that. Oh, that's interesting. Had no idea of that when I asked that question.
But yeah, it's probably a red one to go with the blood stripes on my uniform.
Oh, this is a fun question. Okay. Would you rather have to shout all the time or only whisper?
Only whisper. When I shout, you can hear me across the job site.
You know it. Oh, good answer. Next to last question. So, what historical figure, dead or alive, would you like to have dinner with? And what is one question you'd want to ask them?
I'm going to throw this one out there. It'd be Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh.
To go with my architectural, because I love architecture. And the one question I would ask him was what prompted him to do designs like Falling Water, which is 13 miles from my parents' house in PA.
Oh, wow.
And to bring nature in to that design the way he did there.
That would be a fascinating discussion. Good stuff.
Alrighty, last question. I am going to change it up a little. What do you think the most important tool a contractor can have is?
Honestly, his brain. You use your brain as a contractor more than anything. If you don't have the proper tool for a particular thing, there are so many different ways to do it without that tool. The tool is there to make life easier, make production come. But being able to think that process through and see the big picture otherwise, definitely your brain.
Makes sense to me.
Great answer. I know I grew up with the saying there's more than one way to skin a cat, and I always wondered who these cat skinners were out there, but there is more than one way to do things. Good stuff. So, Clyde, thank you again so much for being with us today. For folks who want to get in touch with you, to watch your videos, what's the best ways for them to do that?
Right now, the best place to get a hold of me is on LinkedIn. And like I said, things are crazy right now because I'm kind of off. I'm waiting on badging for a job and then probably going to end up back up in PA. But the easiest place, because I'm checking in on LinkedIn a couple times a day, normally, even when I'm working at lunchtime, I'll check, see what's going on. Then when I get home. And for those out there also that are on LinkedIn, if you're not on a LinkedIn premium package, I would suggest to try it out and look into the LinkedIn Learning Library. If you get down through my profile, in the last 3 years, I've completed probably 190 different classes and have certifications for them, all through LinkedIn Learning. So there's a wealth of knowledge out there on many different things.
Good advice. And folks can find Clyde King pretty easily on LinkedIn, I found. So encourage folks to join up with you, hook up with you that way and connect and see where it goes. So good stuff. So, guys, we were all successful working in our challenge words. I didn't think I was going to get mine in there, to be honest.
I was worried about yours for a minute.
that I kind of cheated. I always try to get it in before the rapid fire because usually you can figure out a way to sneak it in the rapid fire, but I couldn't. So my word was tangerine that I worked in there. Ethan, you had?
I had firewood, which is a little bit iffy, but I got it in there.
You got her in there. And Clyde, you had?
Social studies.
I don't think you worked it in there so smoothly. I don't think anyone would have ever dreamed that was what you were challenged to say. So that was a good job. Good job. Well, thank you again so much, Clyde, for being with us today. We've enjoyed this time together and appreciate it.
I had fun.
Well, and thank you to our audience for tuning into this episode of Construction Disruption with Union Carpenter Foreman. Now we're talking social media extraordinaire, Clyde King of Buchanan, West Virginia. He's a great industry veteran, and he just wants to give it back and teach at this point. So kudos to him. And please watch for future episodes of our podcast. We always have great guests. Don't forget to leave a review. We appreciate those. Until the next time we're together, keep on disrupting, keep on looking for better ways of doing things, and most importantly, don't forget to have a positive impact on everyone you encounter. So God bless and take care. This is Isaiah Industries signing off until the next episode of Construction Disruption.
This podcast is produced by Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building products.